Okay, so let's get started. A long time ago, in a movie theater that would have been about maybe a 45-minute drive from where I am right now, but unfortunately it's been torn down. That was the movie theater of my childhood. I saw a lot of movies there. I saw the first Star Wars, saw the first Superman. I think I saw Superman 2 over there. Uh, I think the last movie I saw in that movie was Masters of the Universe. That was the last movie I saw in that cinema. But that was the cinema where I saw the original Star Wars. And, God, that would have been when I was maybe about 2 years old. Like I say, it's been a while. But I remember it. I remember it very vaguely because, like I said, you don't really have that many memories from when you're 2 years old. And if you have any memories at all from when you're 2 years old, it's usually memories that are, how do I put this, kind of visceral. They're more sort of emotional memories than anything else. And I think that's why the only real memory that I have of that first time that I saw Star Wars was that scene where Luke and Leia swing across the chasm in the Death Star. That was something that made very much of an impression on me when I was that age. And I might have been old enough that I would have had some Star Wars toys at that time. And I think for a lot of us kids that grew up in that era, when the original Star Wars movies were still coming out in the theaters during that sort of, I guess, 6 year span. Would it be 6 years? 6 years? Was it 3 years? Yeah, it was 3 years between movies. So it would have been 1977 to 1984. So I'm bad at math. So let's see. Uh, 8, 9, 10. That would have been Empire. And then uh, 1, 2, 3, Jedi. So yeah, that would have been about a 6 year span in between all three of those movies. It was a very different time because we didn't really have home media at that time. You had uh, like things like 16 millimeter projectors and things like that. And Star Wars was kind of the last gasp of the home movies in that sort of way. They put out Star Wars and they put out Empire, and I don't think Jedi was even put out on 16 millimeter film. Uh, Home video didn't really start to become a thing with VHS until uh, probably a little bit after the release of Jedi. So for us kids that wanted to relive the adventure of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi any way that we could, we would play with our toys, or we would listen to records because you had like the book and record sets. You could go back and reread storybooks or even the movie novelization. I must have read the novel of Star Wars several times when I was in middle school because it was something I could carry around with me to experience some Star Wars. It was still a new enough book that a lot of the libraries that I would go to when I was in schools would still have that book. But yeah, Star Wars. I don't think that there's ever been as important of a movie in terms of how it changed popular culture as Star Wars. I don't think that's an exaggeration to say that. Some ways that's a good thing, in some ways that's a bad thing. But I'll leave that up to you, the viewer, to decide what you think. I'm going to try to pull this a little closer. I feel like you're a little too far away from me. There we go. So, there, that's better. Maybe turn that a little bit. And I think I'm going to recenter the camera so that I feel like I'm more looking at the camera. Oh, excuse me. Got a little alarm on my phone. Just let me just shut that up real quick. I'm doing a thing to earn points for Amazon gift cards. So that's what that is. It's just boring stuff. Never mind. All right. So where were we? We were talking about Star Wars. One of the things that I like about the first Star Wars movie is that it's probably the most self-contained Star Wars movie, and it's probably, I would say, Star Wars in its purest form. Like, with the next movie that comes out, The Empire Strikes Back, that's where George Lucas starts to really expand upon the mythology of Star Wars, and he introduces the concept in that spoiler warning, if you haven't seen The Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader is actually Luke Skywalker's father. Yeah, I know, right? Crazy. George Lucas would have you believe that this was something that, was always part of the story, and it kind of was and kind of wasn't. It's kind of a vague sort of thing. I think that there were a few characters in the first draft of Star Wars that kind of all gave elements to Darth Vader. I might do a video where I talk about that just by itself. But, it's not like the sort of thing where he went into it with the idea that the villain of the story is going to be Darth Vader and he's actually going to be the father of the hero of the story, Luke Skywalker. So, like a lot of kids, I think I probably had more of an influence of the toys than the movies themselves, because those toys were part of your life every day, and the movies you got to see them like when they were at the theater, and they did get re-released a few times, so we did have multiple chances to see them, but it wasn't like today where you could just turn on Disney Plus and there it is. And even then, the one you get on Disney Plus isn't the original movie, because it's the one where they've made changes to it and put different special effects into it, and Greedo now says McClunky. I've got to say that the McClunky edit is probably my second favorite edit of Star Wars after the original theatrical version, just because of the ridiculous of Greedo saying McClunky. I literally laughed out loud when I heard that, and I'm just like, I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't even care anymore. This whole Han shot first thing is just gotten insane. And I'm absolutely of the opinion that Han Solo shot first. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to change that. I'll never understand Lucas's reasoning. And the other thing that bugs me about that is that George likes to claim that, oh, well, it was always supposed to be where Greedo shot first, and it was just confusing how it was shot. Nah, dude. I read the shooting script. I know how it went down. Greedo didn't get off a shot. Han just shot him. Period. Point blank. And it didn't make him look like a cold-blooded killer because it was in self-defense. Greedo literally told him he was going to kill him. So what's the problem? Uh, Great cast that Star Wars has. It's got Harrison Ford in the role that made him a star. I think that's probably the most noteworthy actor in the movie. Just for that alone is the career that Harrison Ford had after playing Han Solo. Makes it worth noting. But you also had legendary actors like Alec Guinness, who was a really big name at the time, and definitely the biggest get in the whole cast. Lucas was really lucky to get Alec Guinness. And apparently, Guinness had some disdain for the role later on, and, you know, spoke kind of ill of it, which I think is unfortunate because it was a role that was very beloved by those of us that grew up with these movies. Carrie Fisher, can't say enough nice things about Carrie Fisher. Beautiful lady, funny lady, just beautiful soul. Like I love watching her in interviews, and she's just such a character. She's a really really funny lady, and Princess Leia doesn't really get that much of a chance to exploit the humor of Carrie Fisher, but thankfully she did some other movies where she got to take more advantage of her comedic chops. And in fact, I would say that she had a much more prolific and influential career as a writer, both in terms of novels and screenwriting, than she ever had as an actress. And she was a good actress. She was from good stock. Hollywood royalty, as it were. I mean, her mom is Debbie Reynolds, who's like, a pretty legendary figure. And you had Mark Hamill, uh, one of his earliest roles. He'd done like, some guest starring spots on television shows and things like that. And this was a big, major motion picture that he was headlining. Like, granted, it's kind of a low budget movie, but still, young actor, his first big starring role, and he gave it his all. He was earnest as hell. A lot of people talk smack about his acting in the movie and talk about the character being whiny and everything, but he has an arc. He goes through something. He matured. Even by the end of the first Star Wars movie, he's matured quite a bit. And he is in Empire. We'll discuss that when we discuss Empire. A bit more impetuous and reckless, as Yoda likes to say. But Luke Skywalker's a great character, and he has a great arc. And he was a character that I think everybody watching those movies related to somewhat. What with the whole the famous scene of Luke staring off across the rocky terrain of Tatooine off towards the horizon and seeing the sun setting, and to us humans in the audience, it's such a strange and beautiful sight. And I'm sure to Luke, it was a beautiful sight, but it was sad for him because it represented this horizon he seemed to never be able to reach. Like I think in his heart felt like he had a bigger destiny and knew that he had a bigger destiny than just working on his uncle's farm. And at that point, it all just seemed so far away, and he seemed so trapped. And I think that's something like all of us can relate to one extent or another. And I think that's why the character of Luke Skywalker resonates with us the way he does. So yeah, what else can I say about Star Wars? I like the aliens in the cantina an awful lot, and I kind of wanted to mention them specifically because I feel like nowadays we kind of take that for granted, and we don't realize how weird and cool and original that those characters were at the time. That those are like really kind of freaky alien designs that took a whole lot of cleverness to come up with. Like, Greedo was like a walking seahorse. Like, his head looks like a seahorse, and like who thinks of stuff like that? Who like an alien seahorse guy? Come to think of it, Walrus Man, Hammerhead, Greedo being a seahorse. These are all like aquatic creatures. What are they even doing on a desert planet? Peter Cushing. Going back to the cast, Peter Cushing is probably my favorite actor of all time, and this probably would have been the first movie I would have seen him in when I was a kid. So Star Wars led to a lifelong fandom of who I would later learn was one of the greatest horror movie actors who ever lived. He played Baron Frankenstein and Dr. Van Helsing in the Hammer horror movies, both the Frankenstein and Dracula series, and a very talented actor. Uh, he had Anthony Daniels, who basically created the role of C-3PO, because C-3PO was originally supposed to be a very different character, and something about Daniels' personality just clicked with it and made it work. You had Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, who who could have been a pretty grotesque character, I think, with a really solid sense of humanity, and made us relate to that. By the way, legend has it that Chewbacca was based on Harrison Ford's own dog, whose name was Indiana. And yes, that would be the Indiana that Indiana Jones was named after. So, connection to two of the great characters of sci-fi and fantasy cinema there. Uh, a lot of cool things about Star Wars. The breakout character of it was definitely Darth Vader, and I think that Darth Vader wound up becoming a bigger character than even Lucas himself would have expected, which is probably why he came up with the whole idea of having Vader turn out to be Luke Skywalker's father in the next movie. Because, he had to justify his place in the whole grand scheme of things. And of course, then he would have come up with the idea, oh, well, I should do a movie about how Darth Vader became a bad guy. So then you had him coming up with the idea for the prequels, and that would retroactively make Star Wars into Episode 4, A New Hope. But I never call it that. I don't really mind people calling it that, especially because it kind of simplifies things to just refer to it as A New Hope or Episode 4 or whatever, when you're having a conversation about all of the movies, rather than just say, Star Wars. Well, which Star Wars? Well, the first one. You mean Episode 1? No, not Episode 1. I mean the first Star Wars, 1977. So, so yeah, that's, I think that's everything I have to say about the first Star Wars movie now. I might do some other videos where I talk about certain aspects of it, but this is just kind of like an overview of some of my opinions of it. That's pretty much it for now, and, next video I do in this series will be The Empire Strikes Back, obviously. So, everyone, take care until next time. Bye.